Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. May peace be upon you. This is Edward Ahmed Mitchell, the Deputy Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Thank you so much for joining us today as we present the results of our most recent poll of the 2024 presidential race. This survey is, I think, very important to us, to the American Muslim community, and everyone is curious to see how people will vote in the fall. This is the first national poll conducted scientifically of American Muslims since President Biden withdrew from the race. There have been a lot of polling showing what Muslims were thinking when he was in the race, but this is the first national poll addressing American Muslims in particular post Biden's withdrawal, post the RNC, post the DNC. So this information is very important to us and to elected officials who want to engage with the Muslim community and know where we're leaning and what issues are important to our community members. And so that's what you can hear today. What you're going to find out in just a few moments are a few key things. Number one, the American Muslim community is very politically diverse in terms of their voting preferences, the issues they care about, very diverse. But there are some common grounds. You're going to find that the issue of the genocide in Gaza is a top concern of the American Muslim community. You're going to find that the American Muslim community, compared to 4 years ago and 8 years ago, is open to voting for third-party candidates in ways we've never seen before. You're going to find the American Muslim community cannot really be pigeonholed as liberal or conservative or even moderate, that there's great diversity in terms of thought in the American Muslim community, and that the issues that American Muslims care about are many of the same issues that any other American cares about: the economy, protecting your kids, a brighter future for all Americans. So you're going to learn all that today from this poll. I want to thank our government affairs team for putting this together with help from outside experts at a very respected university and very respected pollster who is bringing this information to us. And I want to introduce them now: our government affairs director, Robert McCaw, our government affairs coordinator, Shafiqul Mushal. Let's bring them on now to the program, and they're going to share with you the results of the survey of the American Muslim community. Robert, Shafiqul, assalamu alaikum. Please take it from here. Drum roll. We all want to know, what's the community thinking?
Yeah, thank you so much, Edward. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Really honored and privileged to work on behalf of CARE to bring you these numbers. I just want to remind everyone that these numbers are made possible because of supporters like you that support CARE as an organization. This funding can go directly into conducting these scientific surveys, conducting these very large polls. And so we're going to present all this data right now. This survey report that we're going to publish after this presentation, it's actually a combination of two surveys. We have a most recent survey that we just did from last Sunday to Tuesday, where we polled over 1,000 Muslim voters via text message poll, sending out to over 40,000 people, getting over 1,000 responses on how they're going to vote in this election. They plan to vote in this election, the presidential election. And then we have a secondary poll that we did through May through July, and we polled over 2,500 Muslim voters on all their voter preferences, digging really deep into the details on what's motivating them, what's going to turn them out, what are their concerns, right? And so we're going to get through all this data. I'm just going to pull up my own little slides right now just to help push me through. And we're going to get there. So 1, 2, 3. Great. Let's go to the very first most recent survey question. So when we polled Muslim voters via text message across the nation, we conducted a poll between August 25th and 27th. This is the weekend after the DNC had occurred. The Republican National Convention has occurred. We know who are the vice presidential picks. And so everything's really settled since Biden's dropped out of the race. So we asked, straight to Muslim voters, who do you plan to support in this upcoming election? And it was really almost an even tie between Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee. She had 29.3% support. And then also Green Party presidential nominee, Dr. Jill Stein. She also had a similar amount right there. If we can pull it up on the survey. Are you narrowing down? Yes, exactly. So Jill Stein, Kamala Harris actually had 30%. Jill Stein had 29%. We're gonna fix that in post. But you know, all the other numbers, they're showing that Muslim voters who traditionally in the last election voted over 60% for Biden, that 60% has evenly split now between two candidates who have two very different messages that are addressing their concerns. We continue to see that Donald Trump is getting just a little over 10% of the vote from the Muslim community. We've previously seen in some polls in other years him receiving more than that. And in this survey, we also see that Dr. Cornel West has 4.2% of the vote. And, you know, if we can kind of drill into, when we drill into the prior surveys, we actually saw that Cornel West had a large share of the Muslim vote. But once Biden had dropped out and Kamala Harris became the Democratic nominee for president, that a lot of his voters shifted straight to Harris. And so we'll be diving down a little bit deeper into there. You know, really just kind of interesting, exciting news. You know, getting into it before President Biden had dropped out, when we were polling Muslims from May to July, President Biden was, and this is question 7 in our second survey, he only received 4.9% out of the over 2,500 Muslim voters that we had surveyed. Donald Trump, Biden received 7.3% of the vote, and Trump received 4.9%. So there was not a lot of Muslim support for either candidate. What's interesting is that there's only been a slight shift to Trump since we did this large-scale survey of 6 percentage points. While conversely, third-party candidates in our pre-DNC RNC survey, we found that you know, Cornel West had 25% of the share of Muslim votes. Jill Stein had the leading share, 36%. And so you can really see that after the DNC, there was this realignment where Jill Stein maybe only lost about 6 points in Canada, in Muslim voters now supporting Harris, but that with this even split of nearly 30% between Harris and Stein, that Cornel West, who was receiving about 25% of Muslim voter preference, who is now only receiving 4.2%, a lot of that support shifted directly from West to Biden, who at that time was only receiving about 7% of the support of Muslim voters. And so him dropping out increased the chances of success for the Democratic Party, at least within the Muslim community. And, you know, I just think these are really fascinating results. Again, we're going to be dropping the survey result and report right after this. You just need to check CARE's website. We're going to have all this data available. And then the one question is, a lot of people are asking, how likely are Muslim voters going to turn out? And when we looked at that first survey question, you know, we can see that less than 10%, only 8.3% said that they were not voting. 16% said that they were undecided. That's in our most recent survey. In our previous survey, again, up to July, we had, you know, a significant amount of Muslims saying that they were still going to participate in the election. We had 82%. So the chances of Muslims actually participating in the election went up about 10 percentage points after Biden dropped out. I think that's another really important key indicator. Now, I'm joined here by Shafiqul Mushna. She is our Government Affairs Department Coordinator. She helped design this survey. We're going to get insights from her too. Shafi Pil, do you want to talk a little bit more about question 5? Which political party were Muslims supporting the primary? Which party do they plan to support in the November election? And granted, these numbers are from July, but I think they're still relevant when you look at the Muslim psyche.
So, in question 5, about 69% of Muslim respondents reported that they will be voting for the Democratic Party, and about like 4.9% said that they'll be voting for the Republican Party. So, and almost 19.2% said that they will be voting for a different party, for example, like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party. So, based on this, we can see that most of the Muslim voters are leaning towards the Democratic Party.
Yeah, in both the primaries and in national. Do you also want to take the next part as well?
Yeah, sure. So during the November election, about 25.7% of Muslim respondents reported that they will be voting for the Democratic Party. And they said that 6.4% of them will be voting for the Republican Party. And a large majority plan to vote during the presidential election. So about 8.1% answered that they would prefer not to answer. So based on this, the distribution indicates that most of the people will be leaning towards the third party or the independent candidate. Also, I'd like to point out that Robert Kennedy has dropped off from the race. So that may also change these numbers as well. This trend presents an opportunity for third-party candidates such as Jill Stein and advocacy groups to engage more with Muslim voters who may be seeking alternatives to the traditional party system.
Absolutely. And I'll just jump into it. I'm going to cover question 14 in our survey. So when we're talking about Muslim voters and how they could split between Stein or Harris, or how 10% of Muslims are right now supporting Trump, you have to kind of understand Muslim voters, how they self-describe themselves as being civically engaged and having policy perspectives. So in our survey, we asked this nearly every election cycle, whether Muslims generally thought of themselves as being more or less conservative, liberal, or moderate on social issues and fiscal issues. And the highest response was that Muslims are mainly self-described moderates, 40%, which means depending on a candidate, they really could break either way. Looking at it a little deeper, 30% describe themselves as being conservative on both social issues and fiscal issues, while 19% of Muslims describe themselves as just being liberal on social issues, while it dropped a little bit lower, 16.8% describe themselves as being liberal on social issues, fiscal issues. And so when we look at this, you can understand that Muslim voters are, not a monolith. That the bulk of them, 40%, describe themselves as being moderate. That 16% would identify themselves as being, more. Well, actually, 29% would view themselves as being conservative on social issues, and about 19% would be on liberal on social issues. This has actually changed a little bit over time. Previously in polls, we saw more Muslims identifying as liberal on social issues or fiscal issues. So there's been a slight bit more of moderation and a slight growth in conservativeness over time. And really, for me, that just says that Muslim voters are at play, and with the right candidate responding to the Muslim community's concerns, Muslims could potentially go back to voting more Republican like they did in the 2000 presidential election. And I still think that's at play if more conservative oriented parties started courting Muslims and listening to them better. But at the same time, this bulk of moderates, the only really thing remarkable about the Muslim community is that we're just unremarkable like any other voters. We actually, this trend's very similar to African American or Hispanic communities as well. Hey, Shafiqul, do you want to talk about some of the top issues that are driving Muslim voters?
Yeah, definitely. So, our top 5 important domestic issues are international human rights, religious freedom, access to healthcare, hate crimes, and gun violence. And the top 5 important foreign policy issues eh, are the genocide in Israel, China's genocide of Uyghur Muslims, the discrimination against Muslims in India, the Burma genocide of the Rohingya Muslims, and the conflict in Sudan. Now, this indicates an elevated awareness and concern for international human rights, and we should leverage this support to push for more robust U.S. Addressing human rights abuses globally.
Absolutely. And so, when we look at these concerns, why are we framing international human rights as a domestic concern? It's because in surveying Muslims, where we're looking at what is your top foreign policy issue, it's Israel's genocide in Gaza, it's its expanding occupation and murder of Palestinians in the West Bank, but also we have a lot of domestic policies that are impacting this. So we've had over 20 states pass legislation that would prohibit state contractors from engaging in the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, targeting Israel because of their human rights violations. We have changes in definitions to hate speech, which would include criticism of Israel's human rights situation. And so we have a lot of domestic policies that are curtailing our free speech. We're also looking at, in the last year, over 2,000 student protesters were arrested on campuses nationwide. And we expect, and just recently, students have been arrested this week again for engaging in pro-Palestinian human rights protests. And so our Congress and our state legislatures have turned what is a foreign affairs issue into a domestic issue. And that's why, even though we had a list of 20 possible policy issues to pick up from for foreign affairs, for domestic issues, international human rights did rank up there, even as a domestic issue, followed by that religious freedom. And then, general kitchen table issues like healthcare access, gun violence, safety. In past years, our top domestic issues really were tracking to be education, jobs, economy, healthcare. Things have changed a little bit in America in the past several years. Last year, CARE received over 8,000 anti-Muslim bias complaints. We've received hundreds of reports from students that have been intimidated or arrested on campus. The fabric and social cohesion and the safety net for American Muslims and other impacted minorities is not the same as it was a couple years ago. So we are seeing some change. Again, what motivates Muslims on foreign policy issues, though, it really isn't just Israel. We have a very diverse community. We're actually the most religiously diverse religious community in the nation. And so, if about a third of our community members are South Asian, or a third are, of other ethnic or nationality extractions, there's concern for foreign policy issues like what's happening in India. And then there's also solidarity concerns about what's happening to Muslims, Uyghur Muslims in China. And so, these top issues are not really surprising when you look at the breakup of the Muslim community. just jumping into social issues. We did several polling issues on abortion and student loans. And again, in this parallels a survey CARE did 2 years ago. We asked regarding a candidate's stance on abortion, to what extent does their position influence your decision to vote? And 27.9% of Muslim respondents, they said that a candidate's position on abortion moderately influences their decision, while almost an equal number, 24.6, 25% said it doesn't affect them at all. 23% said slightly. 18% said very much, and 5.9%, 6% basically, they said it completely affects how they voted. I actually, there's a lot of diversity of religious opinions, as there are personal opinions on the issue of abortion in America, and that bodes the same in the Muslim community. So these results are not surprising that the community is evenly split on the issue of abortion. Now, when we do another popular social issue, which we get lots of questions about, which CARE has campaigned on, we asked which of the following statements best represent your views on the issue of how to address existing student loan debt. Again, our nation has trillions of dollars worth of federally backed student loans that are at high interest rates. And so for Muslim respondents, 43% said they were in full support of student loan forgiveness. 31% said they supported a partial forgiveness of student loans. And about 14% said they did not support student loan forgiveness at all. And I think when we go back to those numbers on Muslim views on how they perceive themselves as being fiscally liberal or fiscally conservative, I think that these kind of track a little bit there, so you can see some reflection. I also think that moderate gap, 40% view themselves moderate, but 40% support full student loan forgiveness. I think you can see something there where the average American probably does support, to a degree, in that middle, student loan forgiveness. So this is what we're seeing there. We also asked a question based on Islamic principles, what Muslim views were about how to change the student loan system for future students incurring loans. And 88% of Muslim respondents said that they supported establishing interest-free student loans. Interest, riba, it's prohibited in Islam. And you can see that the majority of Muslim respondents, they're informed by this position. And this isn't only a Muslim community position. This is a position that a number of elected officials, candidates running for office, have campaigned on, saying as we look at how to reform the student loan system, having interest-free loans could free up the capacity of students when they graduate to not only pay their loans off faster, but have more capital to invest in buying houses, buying vehicles, supporting their children's education, making those major life milestone decisions that are financially inhibited by the high interest rate on student loans that so many people pay back. All right, so kind of jumping back though, Shafi Quill, when we talk about that mood in Congress, when we went over all those figures, it's not a down ballot experience for Muslims. They've very much soured on the mood, on their perception of Congress's job performance, the Biden administration's job performance. They are indicating, as you'll see in our survey, that that they think Islamophobia has gotten worse under the Biden administration. They do not believe either party has a favorable view or interaction in how they address concerns of Islamophobia or upholding religious freedom. And so Muslims are geared, registered Muslim voters are reporting anywhere between 80-90% of them are still turning out in this election. but who they vote for, and we only have 2.5 months left till the election, it's going to really depend on how the candidates express what their future policy positions are going to be, what they're aiming to achieve as elected members in Congress, how they respond to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. I think all these are a factor in influencing Muslim voting behavior and decisions. Shafiqul, what's your opinions on the matter?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And so, with that, we're gonna upload our survey of Muslim voters on the CARE website in about the next 30 minutes. We're going to be distributing it online, and we would encourage you to look at the results, share these results, let it help inform you as a voter where other Muslim voters stand. And again, this survey will be immediately uploaded to our website at cair.com. In the next day, it will be uploaded to our election website, muslims.vote. And you should be able to find it on all our social media handles, whether that's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're going to be making the survey and its results widely available. If you're a member of the media and have any questions, please look out for that press release we're posting on our website. We'd be happy to drill a little bit deeper. But I want to thank everyone who's tuned into this, who has looked at these results with us. And inshallah, Muslim voters are going to have a significant impact on this election. I really do believe this is going to be a close election, and how candidates decide to appeal to their Muslim constituencies as potential voters could really impact on whether they win or lose this election at every level. So with that, thank you, everybody. Shafiqul, assalamu alaikum to our viewers. Assalamu alaikum. Keep on looking out for more CARE resources. All right. Thank you. Bye.